Yeah.
Here's what our rule is. If they're closing distance on us and they turn and face us, this means that we have to turn and face them.
There is a massive difference between martial arts and self-defense, right?
Huge, because the context is different.
Yeah.
Martial arts are decontextualized.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
What's up, big dog?
Oh, this morning driving back after dropping my son off at school, I had a nice little road rage incident. Well,
What happened?
yes and no, yes and no. Because I'm a self-defense guy, I chose not to engage.
It's
But it
because
was
you're
so
so involved, because you're so enlightened, right?
oh yeah, yeah. Well, it's so funny, right? Because it was kind of like I used to be a smoker, right? So I quit smoking, but every day, right, there's still that, hey, I want to smoke. And with the road rage this morning, I was thinking the same idea of like, I want to honk the horn, but that could escalate the situation. I
Yeah.
want to drive up and cut them off and escalate the situation. I want to teach these people a lesson and escalate the situation. And it was like she did everything wrong. I didn't know it was a girl until I passed her, right? But it was she almost hit somebody. She drove opposite direction, like down the wrong way of the street. And in Canada, like we have very wide roadways in our neighborhood, like enough to fit two cars on the side and two in the middle, and sometimes a little bit more. And she was driving down the wrong way. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe it, but it's so funny. While this is happening, I'm like, I'm filming the podcast. I got to be good. I can't be right. But it was so funny. It was so funny that it happened. And, I'm proud of myself, but I'm also feeling those emotions inside. So for all the viewers watching, like, every day we're tested with this, and I have great power, but with great power comes great responsibility, right, ladies and gentlemen? Makes a big difference.
That's a
Yeah,
perfect segue into what we're going to talk about today. But first, I have a question. A
yeah.
serious, a serious question about your road rage situation.
Okay, yeah.
Was she hot?
Honestly, bro, I was just seeing red.
Whatever, Kevin. Whatever.
Oh, too funny, man. Yeah, it's
Mr. Sholan Monk. Mr.
right.
Sholan Monk. Yeah, I didn't notice. I was watching her aura.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Oh man. Yeah, I know it's pretty funny though. But I mean, it ties in a lot. Like, I absolutely love doing these podcasts lately with you, Todd, because it's really making me think a lot more. And I always thought a lot about altercations and things like that. But especially with the last one and the legalities and all the things that we've talked about, it's been really cool to be able to just to think hard about it. And I'm kind of just dropping these little gems at my dojo to my students of, have you guys thought about this? Sweet. We'll see you next week. And I hope that you've thought about it a little bit more. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I like it. So
And then drop that decision making into their kinetic physical training too, so they actually have to make the decisions.
yeah, for sure.
Right.
Sure.
That's
I'm
where
more of
that's
a
where it's at.
I'm like a long-term gardener
Oh,
though.
okay.
I just
Plant a
yeah,
seed.
plant a little, see how it goes, water it, and then throw them in the fire and make them burn, and then go back and be like, okay, this is what happened, and this is
That's
why.
my style. I just throw them in.
Yeah.
I just throw them in the fire. Turn up the heat. Kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Kidding.
Not really.
No,
That's
that's smart.
exactly
That's
what you
really
did.
smart.
Yeah.
Ease them into it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the instructor courses are a little different, aren't they? Like those, yeah, that's a little bit different expectations. So
Yeah. Well, I think it's good though too, right? Is it there's a, as you obviously know so well, right? A lot of people may not understand that we actually learn best through our mistakes. We learn best through
yes,
faults, and a lot of people,
yep,
including myself, right, being a perfectionist and trying to work on my perfectionism, um, I've actually had to learn to like let go of those things, right, and say
yeah,
I'm not going to get it perfect the first time.
yeah, oh, yeah.
And that's why I just love the saying real quick of, Edison didn't create the light bulb right. He did it right once. It was his 13,000 first attempt. So that means 13,000 times before that, he got it wrong.
Yeah.
And I love that because especially
And
in
every time, Every time he didn't see it as failure, he saw it as one more way he learned how not to make the light bulb.
Exactly, right? Or
By the
one
way,
chance
by the
quote.
way, Thomas Edison was a really bad person.
Yeah, I've heard, and I
He's a
usually
really
don't go
bad.
into that
He
when I
wasn't
talk
not a
about it to
he
the
was not a
kids.
good dude, but that part was inspiring. Actually the chances are probably pretty good that it was somebody he was paying to learn how to not make the light bulb 13,000 times in one, because he was notorious for taking credit for what other people did, like
Yeah,
Nikola Tesla,
yeah,
for example.
kind of like a really
Just a
important.
little guy, just a small mind called Nikola Tesla. You know,
Yeah.
sorry, you know
Oh.
me. I gotta go. I gotta go there.
Hey, I hear it, man. I hear it. In the kids program, I don't go that far, right? But in the adult program, I'm like, we're going, guys. You didn't
I
know.
do. I
Yeah,
do. I do kids program. I go that far on day one.
yeah. How many kids does your kids program have there, Don?
No, no, none, none.
None. Hmm. Oh, it's
I
great.
don't know why. It's so
I don't
weird.
know. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, awesome, man. Awesome. So today we're going to chat about the 5 Ds, but
Yeah,
just if you want to just touch on that quick and
yeah. When it comes to violent crime, there are different stages that happen, and they don't want to. I want to say this clearly. These stages don't happen in any particular order. They can go out of order. Typically, there will be an order, but
yeah,
not always. They can get scrambled and go out of order. So I want to say that first.
nice.
So I have this broken down in what I call my 5 Ds. Technically, there are six, but you'll see what I mean,
Yeah.
because one of them is a slash. So, so the first one is how about if I'll lay them all out, then we'll go one by one and
Sounds great. Sounds great.
break them down and
Yeah.
talk about them. The first one is detect or detection. So detect, disengage. I have them written down here.
Nice. I hope
Depart, deter or de-escalate, and then defend.
nice.
So our IDS is what we call our 5 Ds, or the 5 stages of violent crime. So um, this is like we've been talking about. This is a really nice progression off the things we've been talking about. This is the stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can have all the skills in the world, but if you don't know how this stuff works, and if you don't know how to work this decision making into your badass skill set, then things may not go too well for you, right?
For sure. For sure. And I mean, there's a lot of people out there, that are highly skilled, but one thing I always like saying is it's if you're good at self-defense, you should never have to use your skills, right? Physical skills, right? Like there should be a point where you're good enough at verbally de-escalating, or in the kids program, I would say tongue fu, right?
Yeah,
Because it's just
that's
yeah, you like that, or verbal judo, all these
no.
all these things that we've talked about for years, right? But that's the difference, right? And I think that's where is it's there is a massive difference between martial arts and self-defense, right?
Huge, because the context is different.
Yeah,
Martial arts are decontextualized.
yeah, yeah.
That's the big
So
one, right?
yeah, so let's right into it. So first
Okay,
on
but before we do, though, one
please,
more
yeah,
disclaimer.
yep,
I want to say that the overwhelming majority of violent crimes that happen are ambushes, as
yes.
we've talked about in the past. So you're going right into defend right away. However, these stages have all taken place, even if you didn't observe them.
Mm,
So this is conceptualized learning right now. So we're gonna make the assumption that we have the luxury to watch this violent crime unfold step by step as it comes toward you, so everyone can understand what they are. Sometimes they do, if you're paying close attention, or it just happens that way. But most of the time, it won't actually. So the
do you
first one is
have
go
a
ahead, go
percentage for
ahead.
that? Do you have a percentage for that, or what is like what are the chances of an ambush attack happening versus
We
an
we
altercation?
only have an estimate based on what our research has been, and analyzing multiple data sets and coming up with what's called a meta analysis.
Okay.
Our meta-analysis shows that about 80% of the time, the attacks are ambush attacks. About
Wow.
8 out of 10.
Wow.
About 20% of the time are they showing intent all along.
So do you
And
feel then at 80% being such a high number, I thought it would be closer to like 60, right? 80 is like crazy to me, but with it
about
being
8 out of
such
10.
a high number, how important then is situational awareness? Like how important is it to always have your head on a
It's
swivel if
it's such a big it's such a big deal because of that, because time, right?
Mhm.
It's all about the reactionary gaps in the time, which we'll get to in future episodes, right? We'll break down the timeline for how long things take and all that in
Yeah.
future episodes. But yeah, being prepared, priming yourself, self we call it tuning and self-organizing to what's happening in your environment, for many reasons is that's a big deal because
Yeah.
well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's get this. That's a perfect segue into the first D,
Sounds good.
which is detect or detection. So what are the different types of things that you're looking for? This is its own series of episodes if we wanted to, right? But
Yeah.
to keep it simple right now, you're observing their intent, you're observing their body language. 93% of communication is nonverbal.
Mm.
But some main things that you can look for, there's something called pre-incident indicators, which we should do as its own episode.
Yeah.
But to put it very simply, you're looking for people who are either looking at you or they're practicing something called conspicuous ignoring.
Mm.
So when you look at them, they look away. They're it's awkward and it's not natural how they're ignoring you. They're pretending like
Yeah.
they're not looking at you, right?
Yeah.
So and then you're noticing what their body language is. Are they showing a level of aggression? You know, but what they're looking for during that stage is really important too, as you're detecting them. By the way, most of the time, this is very important too. Most of the time, when you let them know that you see them, it's going to stop that violent attack in its tracks. They're going to choose somebody else who isn't paying attention, even though situational awareness isn't the number one thing
Yeah.
that they look for choosing a victim.
Yeah.
Um, so you want to let them know that you see them without attracting aggression. And what they're looking for is what your body language is like.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you move do you move through life as a victim? Are you playing the victim role? Are you projecting that you're prey? And that's what they look for. How are you moving? Are you walking faster than the rest of the group? Are you walking with your head up and your shoulders back with a sense of purpose?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you do that, that's a big deterrent, but letting them know that you see them. On the other hand, if you puff up, if you play alpha, if you get aggressive, that also attracts aggression.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's a tough one
go
for
ahead.
sure.
So it's
There's
what we call being neutral and crisp in your body language. You're just
yeah,
neutral, you're crisp, you're essentially unaffected by their attempts to intimidate you or coerce you.
that's also I like that neutral and crisp. It's definitely one that comes up in the comment section quite a bit, where a lot of people are like, "You should make eye contact. You shouldn't make eye contact." And I've always been a believer of make eye contact. I will now use the terminology be neutral and crisp with your eye contact, where it's always funny because the comment section is all about polar opposites and some people are like, I made eye contact with this guy and he immediately looked away and he never looked back again as I continued look. And then another guy was like, in the Bronx, man, if you make eye contact with the
Yeah,
crackhead, he's gonna stab
yeah,
you on the
yeah,
spot. Right. So
yeah. There are cultural differences.
yeah,
What I don't think there's an absolute answer there.
for
You
sure.
know,
Sure, yeah.
my preference would be to not to look through them
Okay.
instead of directly into. That would be my preference, or a quick glance into the eyes, right? But without locking on and without a perpetual stare into the eyes.
Yeah. So
Um,
more like you're walking by, they're here, you're walking by, you acknowledge them, you don't have to nod or anything, but they can see that they have passed through your peripheral point of view. Does that make
Well,
sense? Yeah.
we'll get into that from my, yes. We'll get into that from my perception.
Okay.
That I wish that we were kind of together on our feet so we can kind of role
Yeah.
play this out a little bit. Maybe, but
Yeah.
maybe I can do it. I can play finger puppet and I can do it
Hey,
with my
hey,
fingers.
there you go. We'll have to dress them up one day. We'll have one with a mustache.
Yeah. You know, some of the things that I do and I teach, especially as things are deteriorating culturally
Mhm.
and society is deteriorating, like the overwhelming majority, over 90% of these types of violent crimes, are happening in transitional spaces
Okay.
from your car to a place or somewhere else on a sidewalk in an alleyway. You're in transition.
Yeah.
And almost all of them happen during hours of darkness, but not in the dark.
Okay.
There's a couple of things to think about. But for example, a good habit to be, and that my wife and I practice, if we're going to the grocery store, for example, we're going place to run errands,
Yeah.
we'll stop in the parking lot and we'll sit in our car for 30 seconds to a minute and just look around us and see what's happening and look to see if there's anybody who's looking at us. And then we'll determine what we call the flow lines are. That's a
Mhm.
technical term in executive protection. How are people going to be moving toward us, or how would we be moving toward or away from them?
Yeah.
Where's the cover? Where's the concealment? Things like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just make a little plan before we go in and have a good observation. And if something doesn't seem right, we'll just leave or not get out of our car. Make sure that your doors are locked, right?
Yeah.
And even if they see you looking at them from your car, there's a good chance they're just going to walk away and wait for somebody else who isn't.
Beautiful.
But
I
again,
literally just made that video. I filmed it last Friday.
oh
Something
yeah, all right,
very similar, right? Because
great
it's those
minds.
little things, right? If you make them a
Yeah,
part of your everyday life, they don't
yeah.
seem like it takes more. It's just something
Oh,
that you do. And especially like I get a lot of people who are like, I'm a single parent by myself. I have kids. How the heck am I supposed to stay
yeah,
safe? Right. And it's if you do these little tiny things, right?
yeah.
It could save your life. It could literally save your life.
You know what I saw the other day? And I know that people will think that this is weird, but I know why this mother did this. She had her kids on leashes. Now,
Wow.
hold on. Hear me out.
Yeah.
Hear me out. For those of you watching at home, are like, "Woo!" Right? Uh, um, listen, man. People who are involved in human trafficking and child trafficking are coming up and grabbing kids away from their parents in broad daylight.
Yeah.
So the leashes were literally attached to her,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and so things like that, like when you're like, I don't think you can be too safe right now until things stabilize again. They're just things are out of
Especially, yeah,
control.
like in the States, it's pretty crazy as you and I were just talking about before we went live here, right? But it is a scary world. Like my girlfriend and I, we always joke around whenever we see somebody who has a kid on the leash, and we're like, that kid is probably just crazy. They're just running around all the time. So I'm not, letting judgment on the parent, right? But it's like if you had two kids that maybe are ADD or ADHD and they're just really hard to maintain, and you have a baby or you have to go shopping or you have to do these things and you don't have a partner, like all you're doing is just creating safety, right? So the people at home, they're like, well, you shouldn't have your kid on the leash. It's like, I agree if you're in a safe enough environment that you can trust everything. But if you can't trust everything, for me personally, I would rather be on the side of caution and make sure that my
Yeah,
son can't be kidnapped. Like
yeah,
plain and simple. Like, but that's
yeah,
how I choose to live. However, you guys want to live at home, that's fine. But like, even I bet you there's people that are thinking like, Todd's weird. Him and his wife, they pull up somewhere to a restaurant. They sit in the parking lot for 30 seconds. They look around like they're, sketching out. We call them peekers and creepers, right?
yeah.
Right. And they're,
Well, just so the audience knows, well, there's two things. One,
yeah.
my wife also keeps me on a leash, so I know what it's like.
Nice.
And two, don't worry, Kevin. Don't worry. Liv's going to do it to you sooner or later.
Nice.
Just a matter of time.
It will. It
And
will.
and the second one is no one would know that we're doing that. It's just a habit. We're
Yeah.
actually having conversation in the
Exactly.
car. There's music playing. It's with all of these things with situational awareness. We're not walking around rubbernecking and paranoid and
Yeah.
pieing in the corners. And no, it's super, the vibe is super chill. It's just that, in fact, yeah, I'm always on. Kevin knows. Kevin's been in public with me. I'm always on, right?
Yeah.
But the public around would never know that I was on,
No.
right? So,
No, and
you could,
that's
it's best that they don't know. Like, you just chill.
well, and that's it, right? Is it like you said, it's about being crisp, right? It's
Neutral,
about like
neutral and crisp.
neutral, right? Like it's those things is you don't want to attract attention, you don't want to not attract
Yeah,
attention, right? You
yeah.
want to be a hard target, you don't want to be a soft target, but you don't want to be the hardest target where, like you
Because
said, the
that's
alpha.
alpha versus alpha then.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom! The self-defense industry is broken, wouldn't you agree? Have you gone from martial art to martial art looking for the responses that you need to have for a self-defense situation? Well, I spent 35 years training in martial arts. I acquired 7 different black belts to find out that when I pressure tested their shit, it didn't work. So what did I do? I had to come up with my own system. Make sure to check it out at budobrothers.com. Build the confidence you need to stay safe.
And that's the next one is the next D is disengage.
Disengage.
What that means is most of the time with crimes like this, the aggressor is looking to what's called position, to position themselves.
Okay.
And they'll usually do that by engaging you. They'll engage you in some way because they want to lure you in. Remember, they're psychopaths and sociopaths.
Yeah.
And malignant narcissists. So they want to lure you in and they want to position themselves to where they want you. And so they're engaging you verbally, non-verbally, behaviorally, positionally. So our job then at that point is to disengage.
Yeah.
And they'll usually do this by asking a question, right? As they come closer to you. So we have something that we teach that I learned from somebody by the name of Larry Yatch. A guy who used to train with, former Navy SEAL, who was a training partner. And this is good. I believe in giving credit where credit is due.
Agreed.
And we use this and teach it all the time. And so what we say, first of all, our body language is our hands are up. So what is this? The universal sign of that you don't want any part of this.
Yeah.
So our hands go up as they're trying to position themselves. Okay. And then so if there are witnesses watching too, or cameras on you, it shows that you were an unwilling participant in this engagement that they're trying to engage. And then verbally, what we say is, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Yeah.
So by saying I'm sorry, we're showing a level of respect. There are 2 reasons primarily in situations like this why psychopaths will kill and sociopaths and narcissists will kill, is if they feel disrespected, right? Or challenged. So our behavioral self-defense and our verbal self-defense is a big part of it. You could do everything right and say something that's like a challenge to them. Yeah. And once they feel that, right, that's what's called a narcissistic injury for them. Yeah. Once they experience that, that's when they typically will go on the attack. So we'll say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And again, in a way that's very neutral and crisp, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Yeah.
But firm, but neutral and crisp and respectful. So what will happen socially is that we've been trained to be polite. Yeah. So if someone's staring us down, we'll, like, for men especially, in most cultures, we'll nod or we'll do this with our head or we'll say, what's up? Can I help you? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But what are we really doing there? We're engaging them, and that's what they want. So we want to make sure that we're disengaging. Now, this is the difference between law enforcement and citizens, right? Because their job most of the time in a situation like that is to actually engage. Yeah. Where our job is to disengage. So the decision making is contextual and very different in most cases.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably a hard one because for a lot of people, maybe it's just because I'm Canadian, right? But it's like, I want people to be more rude, but not necessarily rude, just polite, but firm, right? Like there's a real hard balance that we talk about there, because it's like, if somebody approaches you and they are a criminal and they are a narcissist and psychopath, right? They're going to be phenomenally good at getting close.
Supernatural at manipulating you.
For sure.
And also, this is another really important point that you're making, Kevin, is that these people who fall into this called cluster B, antisocial, my background psychology, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Antisocial personality disorders, they don't have empathy.
Yeah.
If a person has empathy and there's a misunderstanding socially, they'll mirror and match. So if
Mhm.
you hold your hands up, they will too. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
No, give you space. I didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But the psychopaths and sociopaths and malignant narcissists don't care.
Yeah.
So that's your first clue that they're showing malintent
Mm.
because they aren't respecting your wishes.
Nice. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Makes sense. So now you can go, okay, something's up, and then you could articulate this. Like I did my best to disengage with them during your statement if you have to defend yourself, and they weren't respecting my wishes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They were showing what's called non-compliance, and more people aren't even compliant with law enforcement. So what makes you assume that they're going to be compliant for you?
Yeah. For sure. So
They're
at that
probably not.
point, like if let's just say, so we're going to call the reactionary gap 6 feet, right? Somebody's approaching you, right? And here's my mustache, man. Right? Somebody's approaching you, and now you just feel something's off. So when would you say, like, because we're looking at disengaging, or is that the right word, the right D, right? So
Mhm.
how do we disengage without just turning around and walking away? Like,
Well, that might be it. Like this is the
okay,
part. Like people get caught up in denial and normalcy bias, right? They don't believe this is happening, or they don't want to appear rude.
yeah,
And this
exactly,
sort of ties
yeah,
in. This ties into the next D, right? The first part of disengagement might be this. I remember I said these things can go out of order,
yeah,
but remember this goes into our next D, which is depart.
okay,
So you might just trust your instincts,
yeah,
trust your instinct, right?
yeah,
We've all been there where we didn't trust our instincts and things didn't go well.
yeah,
We could just cross the street, go to the other side. We could
mm,
pop into a business or, knock on a door or something like that and
yeah,
ask for help or go back to your car,
yeah,
whatever. So
yeah,
this goes to the next part, which is to depart. But the positioning part is important.
hmm,
This sort of gets gray with how these things start to blend together now. But
yeah,
here's what our rule is. If they're closing distance on us and they turn and face us,
yeah,
this means that we have to turn and face them.
okay,
Otherwise, we're just giving them the dominant angle on us. The big mistake would be to continue to walk past them and give them your back, because that's what they want. They
nice,
want your back,
yeah,
right? Even prey, like watch predators and prey, like what do? They'll circle each other. They don't want to give up their back or the dominant position. We
yeah,
don't want to be like necessarily all like, like the usual self-defense classes. No, back away from me. Do it. Do it now. Right.
yeah, yeah,
And a psychopath's going to go,
yeah,
like, all you're doing, like when I see these women's self-defense classes, all you're doing is setting them up to get their ass kicked.
yeah. Well,
You're
you're
giving them a
instigating,
false sense of confidence, and
yeah,
all this garbage isn't really backed with any real research.
yeah,
This is this anecdotal, traditional crap and all you're doing with the psychopath is showing that this person is prey, and now I'm going to attack them, and there's nothing they can do about it. Oh, they're going to do palm heel strikes? Really? They're going to do palm heel strikes? They're going to play patty cake with them? Is that, oh, really?
yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Stop! Like palm heel strike to the face, and then the bad guy just falls to the ground, and that's all. That's the movie fades to black, and the credits roll, and everybody lives
Don't
happily ever
forget about
after.
the knee to the groin.
Oh yeah, the knee of their groin. Yeah, the knee of
Palm,
their groin.
palm to face, knee to groin. Man that outweighs me by 85 pounds falls down and
That's
crumbles like nothing.
a long time ago. I took this instructor test. But I don't want to like say what it was. Whatever. It was. It was. It's considered to be something that's high level and legitimate, but it's actually not. It's low level, and like most people think it was actually high level, but whatever. This was many years ago. And the knee was. I don't know. I don't know, Kevin. I can't confirm or deny that. So, and knees are a big part of it.
Yeah,
I should say that part.
yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
there was a
there it
guy
is.
in the
Now
class.
everybody knows.
There was a guy in the class who got his nut cup caught on his ball sack when somebody needed him in the groin.
Yeah,
And he was down on the ground for like 10 minutes rolling around. He was in a lot of pain while we laughed at him.
yeah, yeah.
No, but seriously, he got up and he finished the last 2 days of the course.
Yeah.
Come to find out after that, he had ruptured a testicle.
Oh,
And he still finished 2.5 days of training after a ruptured testicle. So
yeah.
now imagine somebody's on a drug, someone's adrenalized and highly determined. Do you really think that a 115-pound girl who throws a knee to somebody's groin is just going to magically, automatically, all the time, no matter how big, no matter how strong, no matter how determined, no matter how drugged up they are, we're going to give this absolute answer to something that where there's no absolute answer to?
Dude.
It's just, and I'm simplifying it, right? But
Oh, I
it's
know.
just,
Trust me. This is why like it's one of my most popular videos that I just did recently. Right? It's like this is why I don't knee to the groin. Right? Because one, we're biped creatures. You take a foot off the ground,
yeah,
you're falling down. Now you're in a ground fight. You had
yeah,
ground fight training. Do you know what to
yeah,
do? What if they wanted to rape you in the alley
yeah,
and you already
yeah.
fell down because you thought a knee to the groin would work? But yeah, let's not go off on that tangent. I know we're both
Preaching to the preacher.
definitely going to save that for another episode, though, right? Of like pressure points, knee strikes. Oh man, I could talk for hours on that because that's martial arts, right?
Yeah.
So
So that's
yeah,
where disengage and depart come into play. Like all these things
yeah,
come into play, how you're positioning yourself. And we do lessons on this so
yeah.
people can kind of learn how it applies, you know.
Right.
Because of the limitations of live fire and the restrictions of most live fire ranges, we've realized we have to do things differently, and we want to do things differently. We take a principle-based, integrated, and holistic approach to our training that includes pistol craft, weapons-based combatives, as well as soft self-defense skills and education designed specifically with the citizen defender in mind, in a way that can be done anywhere by anyone. So how do we do that? What does that look like? It's not really something I can explain to you. It's something I have to show you. So stick with us, and together, we'll make the world a safer place.
And then that leads us into the next D, which is either to deter or de-escalate. Now, this might be a semantics thing where there's a little bit of confusion. Someone might say, well, isn't this all deterrence?
Yes, yes.
Deterrence actually is when you're making yourself a very less attractive target. But what we mean by deterrence is now it's time for you to attract attention, to give verbal commands.
Okay.
This is the part that people struggle with the most. Now you're in charge. You are telling them what's going to happen. You're not insulting, you're not challenging them, but you're telling them to back away. You're saying help somebody, call 911. Like you are giving commands and you are attracting attention. You're becoming a very unattractive target at this point. And that way, if you do have to go to a higher level of force, you've given a command first. But by the way, you don't have to wait and have to give a command, right? When you get into deterrence, you might run away, then you might go into the defend phase. I don't know what that's going to be, but this is where it gets really messy.
Yeah.
So this is the difference between deterrence and de-escalation. We talked about this a little bit in the last episode. De-escalation typically happens when there's a conflict. There's a fender bender, you spilled their beer, there's a misunderstanding. You can de-escalate then in most of those cases, or it's social violence, right?
I was
De-escalation.
that's probably the most common one would be domestic abuse for that is learning how to de-escalate or
Yeah, de-escalation is a really big deal.
yeah.
But if you're attempting to de-escalate versus someone who's determined to use violence versus that psychopath, they're going to perceive that as weakness. They only understand strength and weakness. So these self-defense classes who teach de-escalation, right? They don't understand that that can attract aggression because my background is behavioral sciences. Like I know what I'm talking about. So this can create a lot of confusion for people, and you're actually teaching people to do what they actually should not do.
Yeah.
You're better off to hold your ground and deter there at that point and become an unattractive target and force them to want to back off. And the number one challenge is that people don't want to assert themselves. They don't want to embarrass themselves. They don't want to raise their voice. They don't want to assert. So they would rather be a victim, even in training, than to assert themselves appropriately.
I totally agree. I would say it is probably the hardest thing in my self-defense classes and seminars
100%.
is trying to teach somebody how to de-escalate a situation because one, they've never thought of what it would actually look like, right? Is there like somebody's approaching me and okay, they grab me and I'm like, hold on. They were here and you don't want to learn any of this stuff. You want to learn just how to defend yourself here. Why? And the number one response I get from like literally thousands of women and men now have been, I don't know how to talk to people. Right? I don't know how to de-escalate that. I don't know what to do. I've never been in this situation. I've never had to do that. The people that are good at it are actually the people who have been in fights.
That's why you have to practice it. Being in a fight is probably not the best place to practice it, right?
No, I mean like as a like a teenager or like a 20.
No, I know what you meant. Yeah. I know what you meant. But that's why you got to go to classes regularly.
Yeah.
You know, you got to go to classes and you have to practice. You have to rehearse this stuff.
Yeah.
Not just visualize in your mind. Like that can help a lot. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And think that you have an intellectual understanding of this isn't going to take you far. Like you have to apply it. You have to have your skill development and your skill application happening together.
Yeah.
Right. So you actually have experience. And I'll tell you that these D's that I'm talking about, Kevin knows, like I teach some high level stuff to some high level people. Yeah. But the thing that people who have applied the most in reality, when I get emails and letters and phone calls and students, they'll say, this is the thing that people use the most.
Yeah.
This is the most important stuff. And it's the stuff that isn't, again, less sexy that people want to overlook.
For sure. And it like one thing I do, like, yes, I'm always trying to just help people, as you know, you and I are both on the same page. And it's like, so yeah, get to the self-defense class, find a good self-defense class instructor that's going to be able to do this for you. But if that doesn't work, one thing that I recommend doing a lot is doing it at home, right? So like, for example, when I was getting bullied all the time as a kid, and like I was bullied pretty bad, right? Enough so I didn't want to go to school. I started having medical symptoms taking place. I was irritable bowel syndrome, like all these things just happened because the amount of stress of I didn't want to go to school anymore. I couldn't face it. And it became a real struggle in our household. So my dad was like, okay, well, let's practice. I'm going to be your bully, Kevin. Right. And now we're going to go through and I'm going to teach you how to de-escalate this. So, but it was hard, right? And there is a fine balance there. I just want to share with everybody of he would always come to me and be like, okay, are you ready to practice? Yes. Okay. Remember the things I'm going to say, I don't feel. So we're going to talk about that both before and after, but right now I'm going to embody the bully, right? And I think being able to role play that and be the aggressor is actually when I've seen students get better at de-escalating because now they're able to find some empathy. I'm like, when was the last time you tapped into that kind of energy? And they're like, never. Exactly. I would have never thought of that, but now it's opening up their mind. And I mean, the psychology of how we learn things makes sense. Your ability to memorize it, your ability to teach what you've memorized, right? If we talk about
it's ecological. So there's a real interaction that you have to attune to somebody across from you. It's not detextualized. You know what I teach him? I teach him, Kevin? Talking to me? You talking to me? You talking to me? That's what I teach them. Yeah. That's it. Then that's it. Then that's the whole course.
No, nice.
That's how I do it.
Well, and that's right? Is there's so many. What you talking about? What you talking about? You looking at me?
What you talking about, Willis? What you talking about? Hey, I got a story. I got a quick story.
Yeah, please.
Many years ago, this was 1995. I was in a ESPN commercial with Gary Coleman.
Oh, okay. Oh, crazy.
I used to be in a lot of commercials. I was in a lot of commercials back in the day. I was in a Mentos commercial too. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh no, I didn't.
Yeah. So I was in this.
I'm Googling. No.
I can show it to you. I was in this ESPN commercial with Gary Coleman, and they totally exploited him. They had a big afro on him with like ribbons in his hair, and he was this DJ. And and the director like briefed us on Gary because we'd be spending a few days with them shooting this commercial. And I met him, and I thought as I was getting ready to meet him beforehand, just thinking about and spending time with him that week, that there's no way that he's going to say, "What you talking about, Willis?
Yeah. Yeah.
What you talking about?" Right? The famous line.
Yeah.
And he said it within the first 10 minutes of meeting him.
No way.
And he was like, it was so sad. Like, I feel he's not alive anymore.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
so sad that he led the life that he lived. It was like the perfect case of child star syndrome, you know?
Wow.
So he started talking immediately about how he was a virgin, like how his parents stole his money. Like, I just like felt terrible for him.
Yeah.
But I have to be honest with you, as much as I wanted to like embrace him and like, I was so annoyed by him that I literally had to like walk away after about 30 minutes and try to not be around him until the camera was rolling.
Depart.
I was disengaging. I was departing. And I was detecting. Sweet guy. Just really sweet guy. Rest his soul. I don't mean to disrespect the dead at all, but
Yeah.
interesting little digression there.
Yeah. Well, another D. You're
So
all
in this whole part, this whole disengage part, the depart, the deter, depart, there's something that people should know about that are called pre-attack indicators.
Yeah.
And this is an important part of the behavioral self-defense. There's two things. One is called the pre-incident indicator. That's happening earlier. We should do a whole episode just on that.
Yeah.
But that now is the pre-attack indicators, where their body language is showing their level of aggression and intent. Their body is going to indicate what their intent is, even if they aren't consciously aware of it.
Yeah.
There are 212 known pre-attack indicators.
Wow.
That's too many for us to cover. Yeah. And they'll usually happen in clusters. So they'll kind of like be more than one happening at a time, usually with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I'll just talk about like maybe the top 10 or 12 that come to my head. And now you can articulate and know what their intent is and what they want to do in terms of if they want to use violence. The first one is they'll clench their jaw.
Yeah.
They'll clench their fists.
Yeah.
They'll haunch their shoulders.
Yeah.
They'll sway back and forth. They'll rubberneck. They'll look around. They'll do something called grooming. Well, they'll touch their face.
Yeah.
Verbally, they'll do things what's called monosyllabic repetition, meaning they'll use single syllable words or sounds, or they'll echo what you're saying back to you. It'll just come off as really weird. Like, why are they repeating what I'm saying back? Yeah. They're hijacked neurologically, and their brain is just forcing them to do these different types of behaviors. Oftentimes, what they'll do is they'll shift their weight and the direction that the attack is going to come from.
Yeah.
So this is a good time where you could work with a preemptive attack, preemptive self-defense. They haven't been compliant with you, right? You're trying to disengage. They're not disengaging you. They're continuing to show intent. Okay, pre-attack indicator, boom, I'm going to go first. I don't have to wait for them to attack. And law enforcement knows about these pre-attack indicators.
Yeah.
So if you articulate that these things were happening, it will really help in terms of you articulating to them why you did what you did when you did it.
Yeah.
So there's a few for you. There's more, right? But there's a few for most common ones for you to look for.
Yeah, and I think those are like anybody that's been in a fight or seen a fight, and I mean fight, not self-defense situation. You can imagine yourself going through those same moments. After I did some schooling with occupational rehab therapy, it was basically the synergistic pattern of flexion was more natural, right? People don't extend out, they flex.
Yeah.
So when you say flex, right? They're naturally trying to protect themselves.
Yes.
It's typically what we see happens when somebody has a right CVA or left CVA, a stroke, right? Is their body will go into this tension before it takes place. And it's like you said, is they're on autopilot at that point, right? And that's where a lot of people they're like, all I see is red or all I see is black. This is basically exactly what they're going through at this moment.
Yeah, they're going into a sympathetic response, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very predictable sequence of changes that happens in the body. Or, for example, say they're like a president of the United States that has dementia and they're on a stage and they bend over at the waist and they do the whole Cornholio stance and fill their pants. Things like that too. That could be happening. Just saying, but boom, hey, we thought that he was cognitively sound all along. He was good all along. I'm not talking about anybody specific, but just hypothetically.
Hypothetically, of course.
Hypothetically, just in
Sure.
case that were to happen. But it's
Yes.
actually kind of a similar thing.
Yeah. It is. It is, right? It's yeah. I don't want to go down that path so much. But you got it. You got it.
I
So,
mean, you know,
hypothetically. So
hypothetically.
we have this kind of point where we're seeing these pre-attack indicators. We can't run, so we can't depart, we can't disengage. One thing I like to tell the viewers or students is you can't do that because your family's on their way back to the car. They've recognized things are happening. Let's say Todd's example of they're about to pass by you. You're with your family. Everybody kind of turns and faces. You're kind of circling each other now. Now all of a sudden they stop and your family knows to get back to the car or whatever.
Mhm.
So now you're the line of protection and you're watching for these pre-attack indicators because now they're really good at walking into the space. You've done your best to try and keep the space, but they continue to aggress forward. And now you're watching for these pre-attack indicators so that you can do something possible.
And that's important that when you're practicing and training, that your training partners are employing these pre-attack indicators so that they're learning what they are and you're learning how to observe them.
Nice.
And how they so when you're practicing just like you did with your dad and rehearsing these things, we like to recommend that they're showing these pre-attack indicators so that you can see, okay, the attack is coming. By the way, you're not guessing wrong. They're coming. They're coming. Be careful guessing wrong. Like, I'm not sure. No. All of these stages have happened, and now they're showing a pre-attack indicator. You can be sure the attack is coming. And better to guess wrong than be caught in a loop of denial and give them the initiative of the fight, right? You want to take the initiative. We lead the dance. We don't follow the dance. I want to keep them reacting to me. I don't want to keep reacting to them. It's a whole nother reason why we want to have our hands up too. We're showing them we're an unwilling participant for all the reasons we already talked about, but also this is a really great defensive position. The fewest number of solutions to as many problems as possible. So now no matter what they decide that they want to do, you're prepared to block or go to a 2-on-1 or throw a strike yourself or you're very versatile with what you can do from this position, offensively or defensively.
For sure.
Using offensive defense, right?
Exactly. And that's where I actually take it right from training police officers is I call it an interview stance as well for my students. We've circled it around. We got to this point. I'm in my interview stance. I'm not looking aggressive. I haven't adopted a stance yet. I'm just interviewing them. I'm just seeing what's going on. I'm trying to use my verbal skills. I'm hoping all these things work. And then all of a sudden, once that pre-attack indicator comes up, now I'm going not necessarily into clenched fists, right? But I'm ready. My hands are up. I'm adopting more of a stance now. I'm pulling my rear leg back a little bit more. I'm starting to load. I'm starting to see, okay, his hands are open. I can throw straights down the middle, right? His hands are closed. Okay, I can't. Do I need to make it defensive? Do I not need to make it defensive? Where am I? Because in my head, and what I try and tell my students is, if you're trying to inflict your will on others and they try and inflict their will at you at the same time, now we're fighting. And when we're fighting, it's very hard without an enormous amount of training and skill set or size or strength or reach to actually win this altercation, right? And we have to be able to be at a point where it's like, if you're going, go. There's no half-ass. There's no nothing there. If you're entering and you need to eliminate this threat from you or your family and your family, then it's time to turn on that switch and go. But you have to know when to turn on that switch. And I think that's where a lot of people don't know when to do that and why the training is so important.
That's why we have to train.
We
have to train how to turn the switch on, how to turn the switch off, and how to meet force with everything in between. Two other little nuances. One, this open hand thing is good for your self-defense legally. It's really great to parry and block from too with open hands, right? And if you clench your fist, now you're showing what your intent is. But also, here's what a lot of people will do, and without knowing they're doing it, is they'll do karate hands.
Really? Oh, interesting.
So while they're doing this, they don't realize it. They're starting to do karate hands. I'm like, first of all, you look ridiculous. Okay. And second, like, do you think maybe you're showing what you're into? No, back away from me. Do it. Do it now. Right?
Judo chop.
No, supplicate with the hands, right? That's what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
in the US, this is the interview position. Well, they're talking sort of, my hands are a little bit higher than normal,
Yeah.
but they'll steeple their hands, which shows behaviorally, this shows superiority.
Yeah.
Right. So that they're in charge, but also it's supplicating with their hands. And this would be professional in my view.
Yes.
For law enforcement to talk this way, or they might have their pet notepad handy, right? That's another thing that they'll do as a decoy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't recommend that for them, but whatever they feel like they have to do, or whatever their policies are for their department.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, so there's all these little things that add up, you know, and we want to become a very unattractive target. We want to become a hard target, like Kevin said. And so there's a good chance that they might just, okay, I'm going to go find somebody else. That gives us into the next D, which is the defend thing, which Kevin, of course, Kevin jumps ahead and steals my thunder. Kevin jumps ahead.
Martial arts.
Kevin steals my thunder like he always does. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for going out of order. All right, but
all right, he's getting aggressive. Wait, it's okay, Todd. I hear what you're saying, but I can't help you.
So we get into defend part. This is all defending, right? But just in the parlance of this, defend means now it's become kinetic.
Yeah.
And now there's violence. There's violence. By the way, violence for my school's terminology, with violence, there's a victim.
Okay.
We're otherwise we teach people the terminology that we're using force. We use force. There's not a victim.
Nice.
So we use force as a countermeasure to violence. That's how we put it.
Beautiful. And I think that terminology is super important. That's why I love that, like all your forest science background really ties in so well to your psychology background as well, because now you're actually, one, able to understand the criminal mind, right? Well, not just criminal mind, the narcissist mind, because narcissists can be narcissists and not be criminal, right? But it's
sub-criminal.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, sub-criminal.
We can really start to understand more of why people are doing things. And that's why I love psychology myself. It's something that's always just been a real interest of mine, because I love studying how people think. And then that think to me is how they move, right? I can usually, I'm getting better at it, over the years, especially 21 years of teaching now, right? Somebody can walk in, I ask them their profession, and almost immediately I'll know how they move. Almost immediately I know how they're going to react under pressure. Almost immediately I can do these things. So, and it's rare, that I'm wrong. Well, I shouldn't say it like that, but there are exceptions, obviously, to each of those.
You were wrong once back in '93.
Yeah, right. The world has changed a lot these days. I used to think that groin kicks worked until I took like 50, and I was like, oh yeah, that doesn't hurt at all.
Well, that's a slightly different conversation for you, Kevin.
Easy now. Just because I live in Canada and I have all these programs.
Oh yeah, okay.
My new self.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah, that's going to be edited out for sure. Yeah, there's a lot there, right? So, do we hit 5? Is that all 5?
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, guys, I'm always a scenario-based guy. I learn best by putting myself into an example. So I'm gonna throw Todd in the fire here, and I'm gonna do my best to remember the 5 Ds. I'm just gonna look at them quick because I love taking notes, right? So we are walking by ourselves, so we're not with our family, and I like your idea of walking by and turning to face, because that's bringing martial arts in here.
As soon as the rule is, as soon as their hips face ours, our hips face theirs.
Okay.
Because if their hips face ours and we don't face theirs, we're giving them the dominant angle.
Yeah.
So we have to turn and face them.
Beautiful. And that's fantastic. And that's where like martial arts footwork can really help people move properly, right? So I love that. But I want another example of, let's say they're walking beside you. So you're walking, and then all of a sudden they start coming up a little faster, and they're kind of side by side, right? when in that moment, like where do you kind of, when does the red flag go off? Because like
Trust your instincts. What I'll usually do if someone's walking behind me is I'll look back.
yeah, okay.
Then I'll find her if they're closing on me and I'm getting my spidey senses kicking in, or this is what I teach students. Find a reason to stop.
Mm,
Find a reason to stop and a reason that will face in their direction. Maybe there's something you want to stop and look at.
okay. Okay.
Without being on your phone, of course, something you want to stop and look at or something you want to do that puts you in a good position. I'll like if there were like here's an example of what I've done in the past in a situation like this.
Okay.
If there was a street sign, I would stop at the street sign, pretend like I was looking at something in a car, and I'd make sure the street sign was in between us.
Okay.
The pole.
Nice. Beautiful. Yeah.
Something like that that's tactical and strategic in that way. That would be an example. Or I might cross the street or
yeah. So like you said, is it most of these attacks are going to be taking place in transition to somewhere. So this just clicked in from, it was probably last week. So I'm getting out of my car. Obviously, I'm getting out of my car, making sure that my phone's in my pocket right away. My keys are in my pocket. My door is locked and everything's good. I'm walking. I haven't taken the 30 seconds yet, to be honest. I'm going to start bringing that into my life a little bit more of a 360, especially if I'm with my son. But I get out of the car and I'm walking to a restaurant, and it's a fairly large parking lot. And because I'm super anal with my cars, I park far away because I don't want people hitting my nice ass cars. So
hold on. Does Liv complain about this? Does Liv complain about where you
no,
park?
it's extra steps. It's good. It's good. She kind of complains a little bit.
Is this before or after she puts you on the leash?
I have definitely unleashed at this point.
Okay, got it. Good to know.
So I'm walking, and all of a sudden this guy, he doesn't come up fast behind me, but he comes up fast enough. So where I was walking, kind of cars are parked on either side. I'm kind of walking in the middle. There's no cars approaching me, so I know I'm safe. And he comes in, so immediately I move left, right? I start slowing down my pace because he's coming up. And as he's coming up, I make eye contact with him, right? I just say, hey, how's it going? Right? And he doesn't acknowledge me, doesn't see me, doesn't give a shit about me. And he just continues to walk by, right? That's kind of where I think a little bit of this is coming from is, let's say in that case there, so I did everything right in your opinion, right? I went through, I was going to go through the 5D.
Only I wouldn't say, hey, how's it going? Because that's engaging.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Either say nothing at all or disengage.
Or disengage. So what?
Verbally and non-verbally. I wouldn't say anything in a case like that.
Okay.
But if they're engaging me and I don't want it, I'll say, sorry, I can't help you. Okay. By the way, I want to let people know, like, I apologize if I'm sidetracking you here, Kevin, but
it's okay.
I have a big soft spot for the homeless. Like, trust me, when I lived in LA for 10 years, I had good friends that were homeless. Okay. So and people who are in need, you're going to have to trust your instincts on whether or not and how you want to help them in situations if they're asking for money or whatever. I don't usually give money. I'll ask them, hey, are you hungry? Yeah. Like, you got to work with me then. You got to back away from me. If you want me to work with you, you have to work with me. I'm going to go get you some food. If you stay right there, I'll come back. What do you like? I'll get you something.
Yeah. Nice.
Right. So I don't want it to come off like I'm not compassionate. I really am. There's a time and a place for those things.
Yeah.
But don't make no mistake. Homeless people can be very dangerous too.
Yeah.
Especially if they're on drugs. Okay.
Yeah.
So they aren't just winos anymore.
Yeah.
They're on really nasty stuff now. And it's become very prevalent. So sorry to sidetrack you, but I just want to talk about that while it was on my mind.
That's also, and I think that's important. And we're going to go to the next. Of course, he took my thunder. Okay. So in that situation, right, is I detected that there was somebody there. I engaged by saying, hey, how's it going? Right. Compared to just disengaging by basically saying nothing at that time, or just like, when I like to acknowledge people are there, and then verbally I like them to hear because I have a deeper voice.
Yeah.
I like them
Yeah.
to hear of like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
not just some soft guy. So
Yeah.
what could be something I could say there?
I guess it depends on the situation. Letting them know that you see them is a really big deal. You know, that, I mean, we've already talked about that.
Yeah.
Out what could you say that is something that is neutral?
Yeah.
I'll put the question back on you, because I don't want to engage, right?
Yeah.
I would want to disengage. So something that's either neutral or disengaging is what I would recommend. If so, we call an unknown. What you're dealing with is an unknown.
Yeah.
It's an unknown, and you can't really, their intent is ambiguous. You can't really get a feel for their intent at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I usually won't say anything. I don't know. I don't know what I would say, honestly.
Yeah, no,
If it were something
that this is why we do these things, to have these conversations. So
Yeah.
where my mindset was with it before, and it's probably because of my confidence in the training, and probably in that moment because I was by myself, was I wanted to get an answer from them. So I asked an open-ended question so that I
Yeah.
could feel
You can
where
evaluate. Yeah.
right now, that's somebody who's very confident in themselves, who's 6'4",
Yeah.
240 in training, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of somebody that isn't confident. Basically, the easiest thing is acknowledge they're there, make eye contact briefly, right? Stop entire
Yeah.
shoe, stop for whatever reason. You don't need to tell anybody why you're stopping, right? Stop, turn around, go another direction. But you don't need to verbally engage is what I'm really hearing from this.
Yeah, and especially remember that the psychopaths, sociopaths, and malignant narcissists, like, they're so good at manipulation
Mm-hmm.
that it'll make your head spin. Remember, good people will project their good intentions onto bad people, and they'll assume that they don't mean them any harm, and that's what they prey upon.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
The people with bad intentions will assume they'll project their bad intentions onto other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, and so that's their weapon. And
Mm-hmm.
they use violence all the time, and they don't care what the consequences are.
Yeah.
So also, I think that when you're in the interaction, it's easier to come up with a neutral statement if you want to verbalize than coming up with something hypothetically. I think, you kind of have a feel for what you can say there.
Yeah.
If you decide you don't want to engage or disengage, but say something, that's something that law enforcement will do when they're making an evaluation of a suspect. That's probably where you're getting that from, right?
That's definitely it. Yeah, hang
But
around.
then again, law enforcement's job is to engage, where it's our job to disengage.
So for
Yeah.
the viewers and for people that maybe don't have the confidence yet, right? It's just simply just don't engage, make eye contact. One thing I'm thinking in my head, like, you could say hi, right? They could say hi back, and they could say, hey, how's it going? And then you don't answer, right? Or you could just good, right? And then it's just simple. Or maybe I'm just too freaking Canadian, right? Where I need to say something like, hey, I know this person. It's nice to see
When
you.
you guys know, a few weeks ago, I did that seminar in Canada.
Yeah.
And I told them, like, you guys are way too polite.
Yeah. Hey, it is. It's true.
You guys are way too polite up here.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah.
There's this great, in the book Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. It's a masterwork. The very first page of the book says this. I think that the audience might find this helpful. To be angry is easy, but to be angry with the right person at the right time and to the right degree for the right reason, this is not easy.
Beautiful.
Right.
Wow.
So we can use assertiveness.
Yeah.
And we can use aggression appropriately, as the great Canadian Jordan Peterson would say, right? Mm-hmm. It's the empaths, it's the compassionate men with the capacity for aggression who keep the psychopaths in check.
Yeah.
And so we let them know, look, I'm a very compassionate person, what makes them think you can prey on you. Yeah. But then they're mistaking your kindness for weakness.
Exactly.
So what you're really doing is you're just asserting yourself with the right level of aggression to let them know. Now, it's like my donkeys, right? They're the sweetest, most innocent things in the world, but they're straight up killers too. Yeah. When it comes time for them to protect the herd from a predator, it's a very similar thing.
Cool. Okay, so let's go. Very similar situation. Everything's the same, but now the person is walking by, and let's just say that they're homeless, just to make it more relatable to the audience. And they approach me and they say, "Hey, do you have any spare change?"
Depends on the situation, right? But if my spidey senses are kicking in, excuse me, I'm going to say, sorry, I can't help you.
I'm sorry.
But
I can't help you. Okay.
sorry, I can't help you. And my hands are going to go up. Go ahead.
So sorry, apology is going to help deter them.
Yeah, it's because you're showing respect by saying I'm sorry first. Because if you just say I can't help you, they could interpret that
As rude.
as a challenge or or disrespect.
Yeah.
Disrespect. So in most American cultures, not all, like if you're in the hood, that's like I've had people who I've taught in the hood, like, no, bro, this isn't going to work. I'm like, the rules in the hood, you got to follow what the rules are in the hood, right?
Yeah.
Or wherever culture that you're in,
Yeah.
okay, or subculture that you're in. But as a generalization, like, remember, this is conceptual now. That would be the concept for what I would say, or what you could have in your hip pocket. If it were me, I'd say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Or if it's something I felt like, for me as a Christian, the Holy Spirit usually tells me, no, help them, help them.
Okay.
And then I'll do what I talked about before. And then sometimes I'll have a conversation with them, like, hey man, like, what's your story? Like, what is there anything that I can do to help you out? Like, are you looking for work? Like, something like that. And then, tell them, I'll pray for you, bro. I'll pray for you.
So they approach, they say, hey, do you have any food, or do you have any spare change? Sorry, we'll keep it as change. So do you have any spare change? I'm sorry, I can't help you. And then you let them continue to walk away would be best case scenario. Okay.
In a situation where they're walking up behind you and I stop and they ask for something, I say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. I'm going to wait for them to walk away usually, because usually if I retreat first, the predatory instinct kicks in, right? It's like running away from a predator. You don't run away from a predator. You hold your ground, and then the predator moves away, right? You become big. And this is the way. You're not going to literally go like you would versus a bear or a dog and become big.
Yeah.
But you're becoming big by holding your ground, right? And so you're using your presence as a defense at that point.
Okay.
It's called combat without contact.
Cool. So let's say they're standing still now and they're not moving, right? And you're choosing not to engage in any more conversation. For me, in that moment, I put myself in between two cars, right? So there's car here, here. I'm here. So now I'm here. They're not leaving. I want to leave. I don't want them to give them my back. I'm going to back out facing them still. And then I'm going to give myself more space and a possible barrier of a car in the way to be able to do that.
Yeah. Right? And getting between two cars isn't always a bad idea, or backing yourself into a corner isn't always a bad idea, because you're funneling them in.
Yeah.
I'm not saying exclusively, but that can be a good idea. The other thing that I haven't mentioned yet is 56% of the time there's a second attacker.
Yeah.
So during this process, I'm going to be checking my 6 at opportune times to see if there's someone coming on a delayed attack from a more dominant angle.
Yeah.
That's something to watch for sure. Putting yourself in between two cars can help prevent them from flanking you.
Yeah, and that was kind of my thought, or at least line them up or give a chance to be able to do that. So because I think for me, like deter, de-escalate, defend, those last 3 or last 2 with the slash, I feel like those ones I trained the most, right? Because the other ones, like you said, they're not sexy, they don't look cool, I can't sell them on my videos, right? It's more at that point I'm doing more like a PSA than anything, right, than I am an actual martial art-ish, self-defense-ish situation. But I believe that the encounters that we're talking about, the first 3 Ds, are probably the most common thing that people either, 1, don't think about, 2, naturally do really well by themselves, that's just who they are, or 3, they have no idea how to handle themselves in that situation. And that's usually where they end up becoming the victim anyways.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's important that to run through a scenario of just something that they're able to, okay, this is something I could practice by myself at home with my husband, my wife, right? Whoever,
Yeah.
right? And you could just practice on the driveway, right? Or you could go out to
Wherever,
yeah, exactly.
wherever,
Right?
anywhere,
Yeah.
anywhere. Yeah, role play it. Role play it for sure. And
Yeah.
we have people who are very well established self-defense professionals that come, like in your level one, remember yours is different. We usually will do this in level one. I teach a way how to teach it.
Yeah.
And because yours was shorter and more condensed, it was a little bit different than normal.
Yeah.
But we have high level self-defense professionals who struggle with this.
Yeah.
It's not as, it sounds like it's something that's simple, but simple isn't always easy. If you haven't practiced, it's easy to get your wires crossed. And you can incorporate a force multiplier into this like a flashlight. That's a great deterrent, right?
Yeah.
You bring a flashlight up, you could disengage with a flashlight and blind them if you needed to. You could have other force multipliers that are non-lethal, or things like that are, you'd be surprised at how people will struggle they don't have the neural pathways for it.
Yeah.
To put these pieces together when it's very fluid and dynamic, right? And so that's why the practice, guys, I wish we could just teach the whole, like have a seminar and have 8 billion people there and just teach the whole world. And like they come a couple times a week and we're always practicing this.
Yeah.
But the big one really is how you carry yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're probably familiar with this, Kevin, but they've done psychological studies with violent criminals. Well, they'll show them videos of crowds. Are you familiar with this?
Yes.
They'll show them videos of crowds and they'll ask them, which ones would you choose? And they all choose the same people. And they're like, what are you looking for? Yeah. I'm looking for how they carry themselves. Yeah. What's their gait like? How do they walk? Do you show this person has self-respect, right? Are they carrying themselves as a victim? So they become victimized, right? That's what tends to happen. If you're playing the victim role in life, you tend to become a victim. Yeah. Even more than size and age, like, yeah, those things matter. Situational awareness, those things matter, but they don't matter most. Yeah. They'll say how you carry yourself is what matters most. I'm going to wait for someone who's moving through the world as prey, and then I'm going to become the predator on them.
Yeah, well, there's that one video that's going super viral right now where it's basically an interview of a child predator, right? And they're like, what was the number one thing that you were looking for? Right? And he's like, whether they had a father with them or not. That was his only thing that did it, right? And it was, okay, well, that works great as long as you have, your nuclear family. But if you don't, you have to be able to embody that father type role. Right. And if we just let go of father, what is the father? Well, it's not an alpha male, but it's a strong presence that's going to deter them from doing something. Right now, the thing is like, well, what if the father's on the phone the whole time? Like I was at the park the other day with my son, and this dude's like there and he's on his phone and he's just on the phone the whole time, hasn't looked up to his kid once. And he didn't realize that there was 4 or 5 other people that have come in. Right. And I'm blown away. Right. There's times where I'll check my phone and I'll look and I'm like, yeah, everything's good. I look and we're in a big field and I know that I'm going to have at least 10 seconds so I can check my phone or check the messages or when dinner's ready or whatever. Right. But it's crazy. It's also, I live in a safe neighborhood. I also have looked around. I also position myself in a way where I can see where there are people coming in. But I think it's just so obvious to people like you and me of how to create a safe environment for us and our families, where what we would love to do, with this podcast or just in general, with everything that Todd and I do, is we just need to spread awareness. We just need to get to people to think of these things. Be a hard freaking target. Stop being a soft target. Right? Because you're not going to train martial arts. We get that. You're not going to train self-defense classes. We get it. You're not going to do these things. But what you're going to do, hopefully, is you're going to change your mindset when you are out and about, because it's not like the world, especially right now, is becoming a safer place. It's the exact opposite. And these and all these people that are coming into this world, they are trained to hunt you. So become the predator. And if you don't want to become the predator, be the hardest prey possible. Right. So
The
at least
message that's
something.
also, to add to that, the message that's being sent culturally with this cultural revolution that we're going through
Yeah.
is that you just have to be the victim.
Mm.
If you have any level of masculinity or masculine energy, then you're toxic.
Yes.
And so that's demonized, right? It's you're a bad person if you create boundaries, and they want that because the powers that be want to encroach on your boundaries. And people who have self-efficacy and self-respect, and they believe in self-determination, and they're self-reliant, they don't depend on the government, the perception of the government, to keep them safe.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what they want. This is the psychological operation that we're bombarded with at all times. And the message is being sent is, if you defend yourself, that means you're a bad person. If you have force multipliers on you, that means that you're a bad person, that you're not compassionate.
Yeah.
When it's the other way around.
Yeah.
You know, and the people, I say this, like, one of my sayings is, we're not pathetic, right? We're peaceful.
Yeah.
But we're not pathetic.
Yeah, it's good.
To put it bluntly.
Yeah.
We're very peaceful, kind, caring, compassionate people who, again, have the capacity for aggression when it's appropriate. It's the opposite. Like, you love yourself and you love others so much that you're willing to use that capacity for aggression to protect and preserve what is good, what is just, what is right, what is innocent.
Beautiful.
That's the message. And so that's why we train. And also, what are you doing? You're sending a message to would-be violent perpetrators or criminals that you're not just going to stand by and take it.
Yeah.
If you cross a certain line, I have a God-given, inalienable right to protect myself and other innocent people.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And I will. Make no mistake about it.
That's why, your program is called Citizen Defenders, right? Because you're choosing to, and the people that train under you and train under me are choosing to become something different, because there's people out there that don't want to do it, right? And we get it, right? That's fine. But the people that do choose to do it, we're going to still be very compassionate, loving human beings. That's the difference. Is what I say to my students is, be a martial artist, don't be a fighter, right? And I'm not knocking MMA fighters or things like that, but I don't want you to ever fight somebody. I want you to be able to defend yourself, because I always get that, I go to a couple parties or whatever, and they're like, oh, I bet you can kick my ass, man. I'm like, nope, but I can definitely defend mine. And they're like, they're so blown away by that context. And they're like, oh, wow. And they're like, oh, like, you're really humble. You're super skilled. You have all this. Oh, I seen your cauliflower here. All this. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I'm like, what do you guys do for a living? What do you do for work? Like, let's talk about things outside of.
I'm the same way. I would say, look, no, man, that fighting's not cool. Hey, and by the way, Kevin, and for the audience watching, this is a really important point. If you know what you're doing, you don't get cauliflower ear. Notice this. Notice mine. Look at how pristine my ears are. Look how pristine my ears are.
Hey,
I roll.
My left foot's good.
I roll every day. If you don't, so remember, if there's nothing else that you learn from this episode.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know what, though? There's so much merit in that. This was at its worst, white to blue belt. Yeah. And then once I learned what to do and became a black belt, it stopped happening, because I stopped putting my head in places they shouldn't be.
You know this, Kevin. I brought it up before. And I'm not trying to make myself look good. It's just the truth. Like, one of my main training partners he's won 12 out of 13 IBJJF world titles in a row. He got third this year.
Wow.
And there's some really legitimate reasons why he got third this year, but that doesn't matter. Yeah. And he's got the worst cauliflower ear you've ever seen in your life. Like, how do you hear anything, dude? How do you sleep?
Yeah.
Right. And so I always tell him, like, Kelly, if you know what you're doing, that shit doesn't happen.
That's awesome, man. That's too funny. I have a student that the second that her ear folds over, She taps. She's like, nope, nope.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and I'm like, hey, she's like, I need to have nice ears, Kevin.
Yeah. Oh
I'm
yeah.
a high level business executive. I can't be walking in like I fight people all day long.
You
Right?
gotta get headgear, gotta get wrestling headgear for her.
No. Well, it's not as bad as those guys these days that they're putting their, so there's like a workout bar, an Olympic bar. They put a 25-pound plate here and then another one, and then they smash their own ear in,
Oh
so it gets cauliflower. And like, you guys have never known how painful it is to drain it by yourself and to sleep on it.
yeah.
It is brutal, brutal. But anyways, awesome, brother.
So
That was
this is an
fantastic.
episode about cauliflower ear.
Yeah,
So-
there you go. There you go. Awesome. I'm gonna do it like I do every day before we, plug our own stuff. Give me the summarization of the 5/6 Ds.
One, they're interviewing you first. They want to find out if you're a suitable attacker. That's the point that you want to detect them. Okay. Then they want to position themselves to you, and they're going to do that to attempting to engage you verbally or non-verbally. So you want to disengage them. At that point or at any point, you want to look to depart. You want to get out of there, but you don't always have that as an option.
Nice.
Okay. So then you want to look to deter or to de-escalate with them, what we talked about.
Yeah.
And then the last stage is for you to defend. And in the meantime, in the middle there, you're looking for those pre-attack indicators to whether or not they're showing intent to go to a higher level of force. Super, 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 super important stuff.
Yeah. Well, I would say the most important stuff for actually doing self-defense, guys. Actual self-defense is all about prevention, but it doesn't mean that we don't have to have physical skills to back it up, but it does show how important the mental and verbal skills are. Make sure that you guys check out our socials. Todd stuff is?
First of all, check us out on our social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Integrative Defense Strategies. We also have an online streaming program that you can subscribe to that we integrate the handgun with our self-defense and with our combatives. And this course is on there, by the way, the 5 Stages of Violent Crime. That course is on there. That's at idscitizendefender.com. And for those of you who are interested in what we do with certifying instructors, that website is thisidids.com. I appreciate the opportunity for the plug, Kevin.
Oh, of course, of course. Hey, I'm a level 1 instructor in Todd's program for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. I have 7 black belts, and hopefully his will be the 8th as time goes on. If you want to check me out, all my socials at Self Defense Goat or Self Defense with Kevin Goat. We are 4,000 followers away from being the most popular self-defense instructor in the world right now. So we're almost there, guys. 3.7 million followers across the platforms. And we've been over 1 billion views for a while. So let's keep continuing to make this world a safer place. If you want to come train with me or hire me, calgarygongfu.com or calgarygongfu@gmail.com. I will come and travel to you and teach you guys what to do. And Todd's also available to travel and go from there, guys. So always a pleasure, Todd. We will chat soon, brother. Stay safe.
Thanks, Kevin.